It's a good day in South Carolina. We are celebrating National South Carolina Day, sharing stories of our state's history, people, and culture. South Carolina, a state rich with historical landmarks such as the iconic Capitol building.
The uniqueness is the structure and just how many uses it has.
A state full of beautiful locations, often captured by Hollywood.
We can do Vietnam in South Carolina because that's what brought Forrest Gump here, was the fact that we had Hunting Island.
The Palmetto State's culture attracting thousands of visitors.
When people come here, they learn a lot about all of South Carolina and a lot about diverse South Carolinians within that story.
South Carolina, a state proud of its Southern charm.
We sure do love South Carolina. National South Carolina Day might not be a real holiday, but it does give us a chance to highlight our state. Hey, I'm Lucas McFadden. As they say in real estate, it's all about location, location, location. South Carolina is home to many famous landmarks, from the forts along the coast all the way up to the mountains and the upstate. We're right here in the Midlands in front of the iconic State House. That's where we find CN2's Renee O'Neill. Hey, Renee.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. That is a good-looking building behind us, our South Carolina State House. Proud to call it ours here at the Palmetto State, and we are going to learn all about it. That's why we are here with Ranger Rebecca Reinhardt. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. It's so good to be here with you, and you know all the good details about this beautiful State House behind us. What makes it unique to South Carolina?
So this building is very unique because it is both fireproof and earthquake resistant with all of those building materials behind us.
Talk a little bit about what that means, why that's important.
So the State House is mostly made out of blue granite, which is our state stone. We are known around the world for our quality of blue granite, and those columns behind us are actually the largest monolithic ones on a building in America. It means they're one solid piece from the top all the way to the bottom.
So you're safe here, is what you're saying. And talk a little bit about the stars. Talk just about some of the histories, the monuments around the State House.
So the stars on the side of the building are remnants from when General Sherman was making his way through the South. Columbia was under fire, and those artillery shells hit the side of the building. Those bronze stars were placed to actually mark where the damage was done, and you can still see missing granite behind those.
When you, show people the State House and show them the stars, talk about the importance of that. I mean, it's kind of hard to comprehend when you first hear it, but I mean, that was an amazing part of our history.
Definitely. You can still see these tangible pieces of that South Carolina history. You can read about it in books all day, but coming out and seeing history in action is what's so great about working at the Capitol.
And we've talked about a lot of the outside here, but talk about what's inside of our State House.
So inside of our State House, we have our executive branch, which houses our Governor, Henry McMaster, and Lieutenant Governor, Pamela Evett. Upstairs in the building, we have our legislative branch, so the House of Representatives and our Senate chamber as well.
And when you think about South Carolina, it has a lot of firsts. A lot of things happen here that many people may not know. Tell us about those.
So South Carolina has had a lot of firsts in history. One of the first was the first game of golf in America was traced back to Charleston. Now today we have over 350 golf courses and one of the top 5 in the world for golf. And it goes all the way back to Charleston for us. So there's another really interesting first. The Charleston Museum was the first museum in the nation.
And when you talk about our capital, obviously here in Columbia, but there's some history to that about how it got here. Talk about that.
Yes, so kind of on the first as well, Columbia was the nation's first planned state capital. This was started to be a capital from start to finish with their planning, and it's why we have such nice streets.
Oh, and when you come here and you see just the magnitude of the State House, talk about for you what that's like and what it's like seeing people experience it.
So being in the center of the city, we see people from all over the world or down the street. Some people have lived in Columbia their whole lives and never come in the building. And it's really fun being the person to welcome them inside, show them a piece of South Carolina history that will last a lifetime for them.
And obviously Tri-County, where a lot of our viewers are, York, Chester, and Lancaster counties. Talk a little bit about how that ties in to Columbia and the State House with the Old English District.
Yes, so you all are part of that Old English District. It has 7 counties participating, and it has a lot of Revolutionary War history. South Carolina had 1/3 of all of those Revolution battles in the nation at the time. So that's where we get those large names like Francis Marion, General Sumter as well.
And when people are here and you tell them about the State House from wherever they are around the country, what is the main point that you want to get across about the uniqueness of this building?
So the uniqueness is the structure and just how many uses it has. This was built in 1855 and finished in 1907. And today we still have all of our modern conveniences like air conditioning, internet, and it's also earthquake resistant. And that's done in the basement. So if a strong enough earthquake comes through, these seismic isolators actually support the building so the ground can shake and the State House can gently scoot. That's part of why that was added in the 1990s. We had a major renovation, and during that time they had earthquakes on their mind. South Carolina had the strongest earthquake on this side of the Mississippi. 1886, it's been a while, but we want to make sure our building is protected.
Rebecca, thank you for all the information about the uniqueness of our State House here. But the fun is going to continue as we celebrate our wonderful state of South Carolina. So stay with us on the special edition of CN2.
Welcome back as we celebrate all things South Carolina. As they often say, I'm ready for my close-up. All right, back up. People don't want to see that much close-up, I can tell you that. But what they do want to see is South Carolina on the big screen. Matt Storm is the South Carolina Film Commissioner, and Matt, you have a very fun job. At least it seems on the outside looking in. We're surrounded by props that were used in movies filmed here in South Carolina. We're also surrounded by movie posters, just a sampling of the movies filmed here in the Palmetto State. So obviously we are a state that is beautiful. We've got the mountains, we've got the coastline, and we've got everything else in between. But we're not the only state that has like really good locations. So how do you all here in the South Carolina Film Commission compete against maybe North Carolina and Georgia to recruit some really well-known movies here?
Back in the day, it used to be purely location driven. So if a movie would call us and say, hey, we need this, we need that, we need this, they would look at all the states that were available. Now it's really incentive driven. So we offer a cashback rebate, whereas Georgia, they offer a tax credit. So that kind of incentivizes productions to come because they're going to get a cashback really fast. We're a small agency. It's only 2 of us. And so we're kind of running the show, and then we work with DOR to do stuff. All that to say, we do have beautiful locations. Yeah, North Carolina's got beaches too. Georgia, not so much, but you know, Georgia's got a lot of other stuff going for it. But South Carolina's got, it's really friendly people. It's untapped resources, places that people haven't seen in other places of the world. So a lot of companies really like that too.
Of course, we're located in what's called the Tri-County area, York, Lancaster, and Chester counties, and a lot of movies have been filmed there. A low-budget production starring an up-and-coming actor named by the name of Mel Gibson filmed The Patriot there. Obviously, big blockbuster, big name there. But talk a little bit about that, because you're part of that area, or you worked in a part of our area to recruit some movies and films there.
Yeah, and it's funny, it was always kind of a dream of mine, because I went to high school in Fort Mill High, and I graduated in the mid-90s, and moved away. I went to film school. My wife and I moved out to California, and then I was able to come back and work because at the time Charlotte had some stuff going on. And then I found out about this show that was starting up that was wanting to shoot in Fort Mill and Rock Hill, and I was like, for crying out loud, I gotta be a part of that. And it turns out that it's in the horror genre, and so yeah, I kind of weaseled my way onto that show and I did the pilot and 2 seasons of Outcast. We shot in York, we shot in Rock Hill. Chester, we were all over the place. Fort Mill, we were all over the place. And it was, again, it's the people and the untapped location resources that people just haven't seen. You know, like the people were super friendly, really welcoming and supportive of having filming by and large in that area. And you know, we were able to pump some money in, so there was a fiscal boom for that area too. So it was a win-win. It was a really good time. Yeah.
Going back real quick to The Patriot, that is a big movie, and Mel Gibson really continues at the height of his career, but that was still where he was riding a really high wave. To get someone of his caliber here in South Carolina to our area to film, that was, for us, I know, very special. And for the state of South Carolina, it must have been a huge win.
Oh yeah, it was. It was huge back then too. It's still big because people still talk about it. They go to McClellanville and they want to tour, and you know, the fields are still out there where they actually came out and constructed the entire town to burn, and I know my brother was actually an extra on that when he was a student at Winthrop. So I know they pulled a lot of people from Winthrop. They were able to give them a lot of opportunities to be on screen, and yeah, it was a really big thing. People still want to go there and see it.
Still
you know?
to this day.
Yeah.
Speaking of Winthrop, The Rage Carrie 2 was also filmed briefly at Winthrop. We know that, and we've got some props from that movie here on this table. These are some more props from, I think, The Abyss and Die Hard, when Die Hard was filmed here. Now, they do a great job in Hollywood because this looks heavy as can be.
Yeah, but it's made of foam.
Pick it up with one hand, right? And this is not real gold,
right?
But it looks like it, and it does the part for sure. So, of course, beside me is the iconic Notebook. Everyone loves the Notebook. We also have, Jim Carrey's Ace Ventura, Forrest Gump, swept the Academy Awards. When you all market South Carolina, do those in Hollywood know that these movies were filmed there, or do you have to say, you have to pitch it to them like people have to pitch story ideas to them and movies ideas?
Well, it's kind of both, especially at this point, because, you know, it's been a while since these films have happened. So when someone will call us for a location-specific thing, either myself or Dan will say, hey, this is how they did The Notebook, or this is a place that they used for Forrest Gump. So that puts that image right in their mind of, hey, we can do Vietnam in South Carolina because that's what brought Forrest Gump here, was the fact that we had Hunting Island, and Vietnam is what they shot there. So that kind of thing, yeah, so when we kind of, it's kind of, you know, we'll take examples from things, and then it gives them at least a reasonable idea of what we have to offer here, yeah.
Well, the South Carolina Film Commission is so valuable to the Palmetto State. What do you hope people would understand or learn about your industry?
Well, that it's a very interesting thing to get into, and that I think the big takeaway for me personally is I went to high school in Fort Mill, and I had no idea that you could work in the film industry. And I wound up going to film school because just on a lark, moved out to LA and got into the locations department, and I was a location manager for 13 years. Luckily enough, I worked in LA for a long time, and then Charlotte, and then Fort Mill, Rock Hill, Atlanta, and now I'm here. But I've been kind of all over the States, being able to do this weird job that I love. And everyone is employable in this trade. Construction, flowers, if you're good at decorating things, if you are a handyman, if you can paint, everyone has a trade that can kind of translate over to the film industry. So being able to express that to people and to have them say, hey, this is a really good paying, these are realistic expectations, this is a real thing that can happen. People really can work in this industry, and it's not just some crazy pipe dream, it's an actual reality. So trying to make that happen for folks, that's what I like.
Well, you do a fantastic job, clearly, based on these movies that have been recruited here to the Palmetto State, and the fact that you have a local tie to our area makes it so much better. So, all right, well, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it, and of course, we will continue with our look at celebrating everything South Carolina when CN2 continues right after this.
Thanks for staying with CN2 News as we continue to tell you how to experience the wonderful state of South Carolina. We are here at the State Museum. We're so excited to learn more about the culture, and that's how you can do it under one roof here. And Joanne Zeiss, she is the history curator. You're going to tell us all about this wonderful place. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming. We're glad to have you here and be able to tell people about how they can learn more about South Carolina here at the museum.
And I know you have been here for 11 years, but you actually walked in the doors here for the first time when the museum opened. Tell me about that.
Oh, absolutely. So in 1988, I remember I was pushing my little baby nephew through the door, and I was so excited to be here. We'd been waiting for the State Museum. You know, it was a long time to make the State Museum possible here, and a lot of community folks coming together to make it possible. And to be here with the balloons, I remember Strom Thurmond was here and the governor was here, and it was just such a fun place to come and celebrate the diverse culture of South Carolina, all in one place to learn about the art, about the cultural history, about the geography. If you told me I was going to come back and be the history curator, I'd have been like, oh.
And now you're living your dream.
I know.
Getting to tell us about the history here, and then everyone else will walk through the doors. So we're here on the 4th floor. We have the Hunley submarine behind us. So many wonderful things that really, tie in South Carolina's history. Talk a little bit about what's on this floor.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're on the 4th floor. We have 4 floors here: natural history, art, and science and tech, and then our 4th floor, which is our cultural history. Okay. So up here on the cultural history floor, you're going to get a wide swath of South Carolina history, and you're going to actually start with prehistory, so those native indigenous people in the Southeast, and learn about their life and the things that were happening. And then you learn about colonization all the way up through the early 20th century. Now on top of that, we also have a whole bunch of changing exhibitions that we bring in. So we do talk about civil rights through those and more modern history. We get into recent things we brought in. So we just had a show, and we often have one on recent acquisitions. So we're always collecting, because the South Carolina story is always unfolding, and there's always new layers, and it's a rich and diverse history. So we're always looking to fill in those gaps that we know we have in our collection. So we often put those out in a special show several times a year to show what we've got going on behind the scenes a little bit too.
And the other floors, you see a lot of children here. I know there's some interactive other exhibits. Talk a little bit about what a family can experience.
There's so much to explore for the little ones too. So we have everything. We go all the way up to the space age, and you could actually get into one of our designed moon buggies and pretend you are roaming around on the planet of the moon, and learn about Charlie Duke, who's a South Carolina astronaut, as well as other South Carolina astronauts like Charlie Bolden. So you can do that. You can also climb aboard a train from the early 1800s, one of the first fully American-built passenger trains. So you can climb on that and pretend you're on a train from the moon to the trains. So we have all of that, as well as like trying some experiment stuff down on the 3rd floor in SciTech. You can watch really old films on all kinds of old TVs, which is one of my favorite places in the museum, because you have grandparents telling their kids, I had a TV like that, or a blender.
TV.
Right.
Yeah.
And kids are like, what is this thing? And that's a phone. So there's a lot of that kind of community. So it's a great place to bring a family and explore the history. Some of it people have experienced for themselves. Yeah. So you could also go into our schoolhouse and pretend you're in, getting in a one-room schoolhouse deal. We also have a general store, so there's lots of history to explore. So we do have the Hunley, we have lots in the Civil War, but there's a lot more to South Carolina than just the Civil War. That's a big deal. Yeah. But there's American Revolution and some of the arms and artifacts from that period to explore as well. So as you can see, a lot.
A lot to go on. What do you want people to know maybe that they wouldn't know about South Carolina when they come into the museum? Maybe something that really sticks out to you that people should know?
Well, I think one of the things that is particular to us as the museum is that we cover the whole state. So outsiders may think South Carolina is beaches, or they might think it's like Clemson football or something like that. But when people come here, they learn a lot about all of South Carolina and a lot about diverse South Carolinians within that story. So you can learn about the Dark Corner during the Civil War and what was happening up there. So you get a bigger idea of South Carolina's diversity and how much life can be different for someone, say, on the coast or in the upstate or here in Columbia. And then you also learn about the great geography and how that has impacted South Carolinians' lives, which I think is a really cool take on history. So why we did a quilt show, and because of the fall line, you know, and before cars and trains, getting textiles up there was difficult. So how did that impact the upstate as opposed to in Charleston? So you get this great view of the whole state, not just one part of it, and you really get to learn about the great diversity of our state. For a tiny state, size-wise, we play an oversized role in some things like secession or say the American Revolution, where this state had more battles than any other. But also we were one of the leaders in innovation in Carolina textile mills. So this mill we're standing in, our museum, is the first fully electric textile mill in the world. And that conversation about AC and DC current was happening right here. So that whole Tesla Edison thing, that was here. And so that happened in South Carolina. So sometimes people think we might be, you know, not on the leading edge of stuff, but we were with astronauts, with mill technology, with healthcare. So there's a lot to explore about South Carolina that we're really excited and privileged to be able to tell.
All right, well, again, you have to come out here and hopefully you run into Joanne because she will tell you the ins and outs of everything here. I learned about the Hunley, a lot about that submarine. Very interesting. Well, thank you again for your time today.
Gosh, thank you so much.
All right, well, stay with CN2. We'll be back still here in Columbia after the break.
Welcome back as we celebrate all things South Carolina. We are back here at the State House, and a tour of South Carolina is not complete without a trip to the gift shop. But inside this gift shop, you're going to find really one-of-a-kind items that are really unique to the Palmetto State. We're still hanging out with Park Ranger Rebecca. She is not tired of us yet. So, Rebecca, thanks so much for being patient with us. One item, though, that is not for sale in this gift shop, but it has a special tie to our area, specifically Lancaster County, is this beautiful quilt here behind you.
Yes, so this quilt was handmade by a group of ladies in the late 1980s, early 90s, and it has icons representing things around the state. So Revolutionary War battles, peaches, strawberries, and our state song is actually in the threadwork on the left corner.
That is so cool. And of course, it came from someone in Lancaster County, a lot of talented people there. If you want to own a state, or if you want to own a piece of the State House, you can do so by this.
Yes, so this is a paperweight made with copper from the original dome. That copper was about 100 years old when it was taken down, turned into souvenirs while our brand new dome was going up.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of items in here that you can decorate your house with. If you're serving a nice meal and you have visitors over, I understand you can have the official dinnerware of South Carolina. I had no idea we had an official dinnerware.
Yes, so our gift shop carries VA tree plates with our South Carolina brand on them. So you'll notice that iconic palmetto tree with a stamp on the back of it. These are custom made in Italy and brought across to us, and it's our official dinnerware.
So now that you have visitors over to your house, you want to look your best, and you can do so with ties and belts and, of course, jewelry. But this is just not any other piece of jewelry. This is one of a kind.
Yes, so this is made by Grit and Grace in Charleston using recycled oyster shells. They make jewelry or housewarming gifts, and this is an example of that.
And of course, you've got so much jewelry for sale here, either made by local artisans or using recycled pieces of material with ties to South Carolina. So obviously we're in the gift shop. You gave us a tour earlier of the outside of the State House. What do those tours look like? When are they open? Who can come to them? Do they need to set up in advance? Walk us through that.
So anyone can come visit us Monday through Saturday. We offer tours 6 times a day on the weekdays. So if you have less than 10 people, come on in without a reservation. If you're a school group with more than 10, please call us and we're happy to set you up with a tour.
Well, we might be a little biased since you're here, but you've been a fantastic tour guide for us, Park Ranger Rebecca, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for joining us as we celebrate all things South Carolina. The best part, get outside and enjoy our great state.